Okay, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carol. Okay, item 2, apologies. Any apologies, Carol? I think, are we all here?
Sorry, Chair. No apologies.
Okay, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. You got say now or at the item on the agenda, but usual one. I'm a member of a Powys Pension Fund.
Yeah, Hill myself have done that already, Peter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you happy? Okay, thank you. Item 4, we've had a presentation from Bailey Gifford. Interesting. Sorry I've been coming in late, but Zoom doesn't seem to like me. It said that it didn't recognize my device. Item 5, minutes of the last meeting. They've all been circulated. Everybody happy if I sign the correct?
Happy to move, Chair.
Thank you, Errol. Seconder, please. I see your mouth moving, Hugh. Will you second this? Okay, everybody happy? Thank you. Okay, let me just scroll down a bit. Item 6, pension board report and minutes. Welcome, Gerard. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll try and be brief in the interest of time. Covering 2 meetings, a conventional quarterly one on the 28th of October, from which we made 3 recommendations and 5 assurances, which are shown in paragraphs 2 and what should be 3. The second meeting on the 21st of November was a deep dive into the governance pillar of the risk register, and a number of recommendations and observations for Chris to absorb. And rather than discuss it now, it'll come back within the paper updating the risk register, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No, I can't see any hands up, Jared. No.
Okay,
So
thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, that's short and I've lost my mouse. I'm not having a very good day today, sorry. Okay, item 7, administration and governance report. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Would it be easy for everyone if I share on screen so I can
Yeah,
point
it'd be
to
easy. You can
things?
follow it easier then.
Yeah, okay, let me do that for you then. Bear me 1 second. Hopefully, you should now be seeing that report in front of you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Brilliant.
Again, just in the interest of time, because I know we've got some meaty items later on. I wasn't going to go through this bullet point by bullet point, but I was going to drag out the bits I thought might be relevant and of interest to committee. So, however, please stop me as we go through if you have any questions on anything that I don't potentially pull out. So this report should be familiar to committee. I do bring it to every meeting, giving you an update on what's going on in the wider LGPS world in terms of Scheme Advisory Board, the pension regulator and whatnot. The first item there is quite relevant because it's to do with the consultation on climate risk reporting, the Task Force for Climate Related Financial Disclosures, TCFD. You'll have heard it abbreviated to quite a lot in our meetings. It's just to let you know that the Scheme Advisory Board responded to the consultation, and that link is available within the report. And just to let you know, as you know via email, that we have actually issued a response from the Powys Fund as well. So I've shared that with you, and you've also got a link to the Scheme Advisory Board response there as well. In general, supportive of the proposals in the consultation, with a few comments and suggestions perhaps to DLUC on some thoughts that we had. So that has been shared. And the next one is about a statement on employer contributions that the Scheme Advisory Board have made. Now, this will be picked up probably a little bit more in the valuation item later on in the agenda. This is essentially the Scheme Advisory Board asking funds to just pause and have a think about setting contribution rates as a result of the latest valuation for those funds who may be in a position where they're significantly over 100% funded. There's some thought that needs to go into how you set contribution rates when you're in a particularly well-funded position. They've issued a statement around that, again, which is available within the hyperlink in that last paragraph in front of you. We might pick up on that a bit more and how it affects the Powys Fund in the valuation item a little bit later on. But it is there for you as a hyperlink for you to be able to read what they've actually said. Annual reports, there's a requirement under regulations for us to publish the annual reports by the 1st of December. This is just to give committee confirmation that we did do that. As you know, we met, I think it was the 24th of November to sign it off. It was then all agreed by committee on the 24th of November. I might actually been later than that, but anyway, it was late November, and we did get it published by the 1st of December, and the Scheme Advisory Board were notified. So just let committee know we hit the deadlines on that one. 2.2, I'm not going to go through in any detail. It's in for your information. Essentially, the Department for Levelling Up Housing Communities, DLUC, have published some statistics for the 21-22 year in respect of the LGPS. I pulled out the highlights in bullet form for you, and it's presented in 2.2. It's just showing the nature of the scheme and how it's changing in terms of finances and also membership as well. Scheme membership is increasing, and so just some information at the bottom there. The interesting one is there's nearly 95,000 retirements in 21-22. So it's a lot of people retiring from within the LGPS, which teams like mine have to then go away and calculate and work on these sorts of calculations, and it's a time-consuming process. So it just gives you some scale of the sorts of retirements we look at on an annual basis within the LGPS. I just thought it was of interest. Another update, which is something you will have seen several times from me, is about pensions dashboards. Quick high-level reminder for committee is just that this is a website, a dashboard, as it says in the title, where a scheme member is able to log in and access all their pension information from one site. What the intention is that they will log into this portal, which will then contact all the individual pension providers, pull it into one screen for the pension saver, so they've got all the information in one place and can make informed decisions. That'll have an impact on the administration team here, because we will have to make sure our data is of a good quality and in a readable format for this dashboard to be able to access for scheme members to ensure they have up-to-date and accurate information. So we're going to be working with our pension software provider to do an initial test of our data against the requirements, and then from that we will be able to identify any potential issues or any work that we might need to do to make sure the data is as it needs to be. Historically, our data has been pretty good, so I'm not expecting anything too drastic to come out of it. However, we need to complete the exercise first before I'm able to decide what we need to do next. But that's going on in the background. There was also a consultation launched by who launched it? Is it bear me a second. The consultation. I did pick it up in here. Yes, so the DWP responded on the consultation on the dashboard, and they made some points to say that they will give schemes like ours 6 months to ensure that we're able to launch it in time. So what that means is we'll have to make sure that we can interact with this pension dashboard ecosystem and be live by the deadline. So we're expecting that to be in 2024, I believe. So a little bit of time for us still to get things ready. But when it arrives, the intention is that it will be a good portal, a good service to pension savers. So consultation's been happening, and the DWP have responded on that. Some hyperlinks in the next part, which are to some videos on to help people like me understand what we need to do to get ready for that. So a couple of videos there that, should you be interested, they're available for you to go and watch. They're not too long, but it's more for practitioners really. But I just put it in for committee's information. 3.2 is perhaps something that's of interest. This was a request from the Scheme Advisory Board on the number of opt-outs and 50-50 elections. And that was in response really to the cost of living crisis that we're seeing. The Scheme Advisory Board were interested in if we were seeing more opt-outs or any elections into the 50-50 section. So we responded accordingly. And we haven't actually seen as yet any significant increases in people opting out or moving to 50-50 part of the scheme. But the intention is for this to be an ongoing exercise. So we'll keep an eye on it really, and I'll update committee accordingly as we move forward. 3.3 is just to let you know that the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority, have just identified that potentially people might be looking to access their pension savings early as a result of the cost of living crisis, and that opens the door to potential scams. We've seen this previously with pension transfers out, those sorts of things. So it's just to make committee aware that the FCA have issued a warning about potential things that pension savers will need to look out for. We have quite a rigorous transfer out process. here, which operates within what the pension regulators guidance and the LGA guidance and whatnot. So any transfers out are quite heavily scrutinised, and there's a flag-based system as well. So if anything looks out of the ordinary, it'll raise a flag, and we'll be able to investigate it accordingly. So we've got a pretty robust transfer out process, which will hopefully pick up any potential scams. 3.4 talks about Consumer Prices Index. This is the index that's used to revalue pension benefits. It was 10.1 at the end of September, and that's traditionally the figure that we use then to inflate pensions from the following April, and that's been the government policy over recent years. And we're just still waiting for final confirmation that's the intention. So once that arrives, I'll share with committee, and then we will act on it accordingly. But we're just still awaiting to date that final confirmation. Pension dashboards. The regulator has launched a consultation on the dashboard compliance, which closes at the end of February. And I'll have to look in. I haven't looked at it yet. I will look at it in more detail, and we'll need to make a decision on how we respond and whether we do decide to respond on that one. So again, leave that one with me. I just wanted to make committee aware at this stage that there is a consultation on pension dashboards out there at the minute. So probably the bigger item of this report is something that the chair of the board touched on previously. Your committee will be aware that we've been doing quite a lot of work in respect to the risk register. We've had a risk register in place for a long time, and we're now working through it to make sure that it's still appropriate, relevant, identify all the appropriate risks. At the last committee meeting, I presented the administration pillar of the risk register, which had been updated to reflect some recommendations made by board. Board met in November, 21st November, to have a look at the governance pillar of the risk register. And as a result of that deep dive into it, it was a good meeting, actually, a good couple of hours long. The outcome of that really was some recommendations from the board to make some tweaks to the risk register. So what's in this report are essentially the highlights of what board have recommended. Don't necessarily intend to go through them all, but there was a lot of work, a lot of useful work that came out of it. And what was identified was that there was a few areas on there where the risks overlapped. There was some around the employers, for example, where there's 2 or 3 risks that could potentially be consolidated and revisited to ensure the scores were still appropriate. So I think a good example of that is Govern 5, 6, and 7. Those 3 risks were around the same sort of issue. So do we need to keep it in there 3 times, or can we consolidate it into 1 and make sure we have the appropriate mitigations in place to cover all those? So there's a little bit more work that needs to be done on those 3. But the rest of the work was looking at the scores in terms of, do we think that the risk is scored correctly? Is it scored correctly as a result of the mitigations in place? And have we got the appropriate mitigations in place? You all know how a risk register works. So it was essentially a case of just us revisiting that and working with the board to make sure that it was doing what it needed to do. One thing that did come out pretty clearly, actually, in pretty much all the risks, was that we need to include reputational risk within there, because this is focusing on the governance of the fund at the end of the day, and almost all the risks have some sort of reputational risk attached to them. So one of the main points that came out of it was to ensure that we acknowledge that within the risks accordingly as well. So you'll see that appear several times, because it was felt as though, because of the governance of the fund, reputational risk is attached to that just by its nature, essentially. So there's quite a few, as you see, they did go through in some detail, and we did go through in some detail all the governance risks on the governance pillar. And what's presented to you today are the recommendations that, should committee be comfortable with them, that I will make sure get implemented into the risk register for the governance pillar accordingly. So that was all I was intended to say. Chair of the board, Gerard, was there anything that you wanted to add to this item at all?
Thanks, Chris, for that comprehensive summary. Only to add, I think the board is in a relatively luxurious position of being able to dedicate a session to each pillar of the risk register, and I think the board themselves feel it's something that really get their hands on, and hopefully the recommendations coming through to the committee will have been well worth the effort.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Is that conclude your report, Chris?
It does. So yeah, essentially I could just quickly pick up the breaches register, and just to say there's been no new recorded breaches added to it. However, we are working with the pensions board on looking at a particular part of the process, and that's in respect of employer contribution returns. We're just having a bit of a deeper dive into the process to make sure that everything is happening as it should do, and anything that's identified as a result of that will be reported to board and committee accordingly. But other than that, there's no new additions to the breaches register.
Thanks, Chris. Adam?
I just wanted to record a thanks. Actually, I thought the work done, Gerard, Chris, and the ability to do the deep dives is really quite valuable. So yeah, I just want to record a thanks for that, and makes our life very easy in terms of reviewing what you've done and passing it through. That was my only comment.
Well, thanks very much, Adam, for that. As Chris knows, I talk about the triangle of trust between committees, officers and boards, and it's well and truly in place at Powys, and I think we're all seeing the benefit of it now.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Jared. Thanks, Adam. Any more? No more hands up. Well, thanks, Chris. Interesting, there's more people retiring, up 14%. A lot of people, isn't it? 14,000, wasn't it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
no.
so we wonder whether it might be something to do with the fact that obviously COVID came along, and whether people are just reassessing priorities and things, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess, as time goes on, whether that number carries on. Yeah.
Okay. Item number, do you have to note this report?
There's a recommendation that you that committee approve the recommendations made on the risk register, please,
Yeah, and
Chair.
approve. To note,
Yeah.
so we we'll do it all in one. To note and to approve recommendations made by the pension board to the governance risk register. Proposer, please.
Proposed.
Thanks, Adam. Seconder.
Yeah.
Thank you. All.
Yeah.
Every okay, great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay then. Item 8, WPP. Chris again.
Yes, that is me again. Let me just scroll on, Chair. Thank you very much. WPP update. Here we are. This is a very high level report, and it doesn't look like there's much in it actually, but that doesn't actually necessarily reflect what's been going on behind the scenes. Committee be aware that there's a few new sub funds that are likely to be launched within 2023, and there's been some significant work going on behind the scenes between us, my colleagues in finance, and Aon, in trying to make sure that we have everything in place and that we're ready to go when these sub funds are launched. So that's what's been going on in the background. But in terms of what's in the paper, this is really just for information, just to let you know that the WPP have now published their annual report for 2021-22. So if you hadn't had the chance to have a look at that yet, then there is a hyperlink available within 2.2 for you to go away and have a look at what's in there. High level, it includes background of WPP and those involved in the operation of it, the progress made throughout the year, and some more financial information. So a useful document, similar to what we produce in terms of our annual reports. You'll have a good idea of what's in there. So please go and have a look if you haven't yet had a look. And also just to highlight that the WPP do carry out routine training. And I know a lot of you know that because I saw you on the last sessions that happened not that long ago. But the WPP do try and put on a quarterly training session. When I see those being made available, I will share with committee and board so that you've got access to those as well. So there'll be some more announced before too long, I would say. So keep an eye out for those. And point 2.4 is just to let committee know that Powys participate in a lot of the subgroups at the WPP as well. So for a lot of the discussion that happens at the pool level, we have somebody around the table to represent the Powys Fund wherever possible. So that was it, Chair. I know I've got my numbering wrong there. I've gone from 2 to 3, so I do apologise. 2 to 4, so I do apologise for that. But that was all I really wanted to pick out in respect to the WPP at this stage. I'm happy to take any questions, obviously.
Any questions? I can't see no hands up. Oh, Adam.
Hopefully a very quick one, which is a quick question on this sub funds, Chris.
Yeah.
You probably have told me this before, so forgive me. Representative on the responsible investment one?
Me.
I thought it was. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Adam.
Great. Okay then. Are we happy? We can note the report. Can I propose it, please? Adam, thank you. Seconder. Hugh, all happy? Thank you. Okay then, we go to item back. Let me just get back in the agenda. Item 9 to exclude the press confidential session now. Exclude press and the public. I can't see anybody else in now, Carol, is there?
No,
It looks-
Chair, but I just need to stop the recording.
Yeah,
So if you're happy to go ahead, I'll stop the recording.
yeah, could I stop recording, please, Carol?